Today we're going to work on an AC dual action. It's a dual action pump for a 41 to 51 Pontiac. It's the 8-cylinder model for this particular one. Also fits 49 to 51 Pontiac 6. It's what we call a model AJ, and first off, this casting doesn't belong on here. The one that does belong on it looks like this. It's the same thing, only different. Still has the ports that go one side to the other, but it's okay. It works, does what it's supposed to do. We're gonna go through it and make it like new. I'm not gonna change this top casting. I'm gonna leave it just like it is. If you're gonna do this at home and get a kit for it, you want to rebuild it yourself, you can order one by calling 781-335-8860. Give the person on the counter the part number on it. It's stamped into the mounting flange like this one here is. This one's kind of double stamped because it's been rebuilt at some point in the past. But give them that number along with the application and they'll set you up with a kit. Once you get the kit home, refer back to this video, follow it step by step, you'll have a brand new working pump again. First thing you want to do is grab it by one of the ears in a vise. Make sure it's good and secure. You want to mark the location of how this top casting goes on. Whether it's this style or this style, doesn't matter. Just grab a mark between the top casting and the body. You want this to go back on the exact same way it came off. That way you won't have any problems lining anything up. So we want to take out, there's 10 screws here. We want to take out 9 of them. And on the last screw we want to hold this down before we take out the last screw, because there's a pretty strong spring underneath that. Okay, now for the last screw. Just hold on to the top. Chances are it's stuck down there. Well, it isn't the case on this one. That's what I mean by it's got a pretty tough spring. It's almost like a valve spring. You take that top casting off, gives you inlet and outlet valve. Take that center screw out. It holds that bracket. And most of the time those 2 valves will fall right out. Not this time. But they're not in there very hard. Now you'll notice there's also a gasket underneath. There was one here, but it stuck to the valve when I took it out. Make sure you get that valve, that gasket out of there. Now I glass bead everything, so I'm going to put this screw back in here to keep the glass from filling up the hole. But that's ready for the glass beading tank. You got a spring seat. Now there was a lot of oil. It was a pretty good oil mess. So anyway, here's the seal for the vacuum side. It's just a it's two pieces. There's one shield, leather seal, and the bottom shield. Now the top and the bottom shield, this one's bigger than the other. As you can see, all the hair that's come out of this. All this is usually down inside of that hole for the breather. Its purpose is to keep, well, it serves a bunch of different purposes. It'll keep mud wasps from finding a home. If the seal goes on this side, it slows the oil down that'll come out through the bottom vent. And it works most of the time. Now I'll show you these two shields that the seal sits in, and you'll see the different sizes. You can see one's a little bit bigger than the other one. You can see it easier if I pile them on top of each other. Anyway, there's a certain way that those go together, and I'll show you that when it comes time to reassemble. Make sure you get all the hair out of this, and it's pretty much gone. Now we want to work on the fuel side. Always take the vacuum side apart first, and then go to the fuel side. Again, we want to mark this location, scribe between the two, take a picture of it, draw a picture, do whatever you have to do. Once that's done, get that nut out of there. Under that nut there's a gasket. This one just kind of fell apart. Now, if the bowl is stuck like this one, take your hammer and just tap, tap, tap. It'll eventually break it loose. Look at all the crap under there. Makes you wonder how long this car was running with all the stuff that's in there. It looks to be rust. Would stick to a magnet? No. I know that's not the definitive way of figuring out if it's rust or not, but which we're going to call it gunk. Get the gasket out of there. And this filter. And we're going to give that back to the customer, because I'm sure they want it. Anywho, 10 screws. There is a spring underneath here, but it's under the diaphragm. So once this comes up, it's not going to shoot like the vacuum side would have. So take out these 10 screws, and most of the underside of this one. Now we're finishing this one off. And it feels like the diaphragm got unhooked. is your inlet and outlet valve. Remove these two screws in that bracket, and these two valves will fall out like the other one. Now normally this is hooked in here. As you can see, didn't stay hooked. And this was rebuilt by Airtex. And I would say it's been quite a while. Down inside of here you got a seal and a retainer. Remove both of them. You're going to get new ones in a kit. And that does it for the body. If you suspect a problem with the arm, as you can see, this one here, yeah, that was hitting right there on that side. Can't see what I'm doing here. It was riding right on the edge. That's where the cam was sitting. The arm's not bent, and I don't suspect that there's a problem. If you can twist this arm sideways or slide it back and forth more than what that is, that's really nothing. You got to remove the pin, remove the arm, chop off this gasket, chop that gasket that ring, and drive the pin out, and you can see that yellow spring that's in there. You get a new spring in the kit. You get a new pin. There's also a sleeve that goes in the arm here that holds everything together. But where this one doesn't, I don't suspect anything. There's nothing wrong with this. We're going to leave that alone. But we are going to take out these two valves. Again, there's gaskets under here. And just like the other one, the other gasket stuck to the valve that fell out. Okay, aside from putting those two screws in and putting the bolt back in here, so I can get it all nice and clean, this thing's ready for the glass beater. And after that's done, I'm going to clear coat it. When the clear coat is dry, I'll run this over the belt sander. Make sure that this surface is all flat. Everywhere that here, this surface, and this one here, everything's got to be nice and flat. We don't want any any leaks. And then we'll be back for some assembly. Okay, everything is cleaned and all the surfaces are flat. And that. Let's put together the fuel section first. Gotta get these screws out of the way. We got two gaskets underneath, one underneath each valve. These are our valves, our design. They actually flow more than the original. Put the clamp on, and these two little screws. Make sure they go down tight. Make sure you have the right size screwdriver. Now you can test one of these, this one here. You shouldn't be able to blow air in, because this is the outlet. You should be able to suck air out real easy, but like I said, not blow any air in. This particular part right here, some of these pumps come through when they were originally put out. They had a dome on here. Let me see if we got one. Here's one. It looked like this. This would have screwed in right there, and then this line would have gone up to your carburetor. When a few years after these were installed, they realized that they really didn't need it. What it was there for was every time that the diaphragm did went through a cycle, it would produce a thump, and they felt that putting this in here, it's just, there's nothing inside of here but air. With that in there, that would take that thump out of it. Well, after a while they realized that it didn't really do anything. There was no thump there to begin with, so they plugged it. From that point on, they just plug it. If you have one that has the dome, put it back in. It looks like it belongs there. But if you don't have it, don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. We got a screen, a gasket, the bowl, and don't forget the bolt, and put the fiber washer back on it. Tighten this up. Don't over tighten it, because you got a steel bolt going into a cast aluminum, and sometimes you can strip it. So now we got the inlet. Obviously it's marked in. You should be able to blow air in and not suck any air out. Like that. Works perfect. Vacuum. Again, normally we'd be using this one here, but remember I was telling you earlier that this was a rebuilt pump. It was rebuilt by Airtex. Well, Airtex also made a lot of castings, and this particular one is of their own design. It has their mark on it. Also has their part number inside it. And this particular casting actually is supposed to fit on a 40 Buick, but like I mentioned earlier, the inlet and outlet go opposite each other, just like this one would do. So for appearances, it'll work. I'm sure if I called the customer and said that, no, you got a vacuum casting belongs on a Buick, but I have one for a Pontiac, I bet they'd say go ahead and put it on there. But seeing as how this customer is in California and they're still asleep, and it's going to be probably 3 or 4 hours, because I'm on the East Coast. It'll be 3 or 4 hours before they will even wake up. This pump will be almost on its way back before they get up. Now we got a inlet and an outlet. Up, inlet and outlet. Same idea as the fuel section, you should be able to blow air in and not out. Blow air, suck air out and not in. What that does is it tells you that the valves are sealed. There's no problem with the valves. The gaskets are in tight. The clamp is down tight. There's no cracks in the castings. Now, we're going to put the fuel side on first. Remember before we took the vacuum side off first. Well, reassembly, we're going to put the fuel side on first. Just the opposite. Vacuum, fuel, fuel, vacuum. There's a reason for it, and I'll show you in a half a second. These are our design. This retainer is something that we came up with to fit those seals. The old seal, when you took it out, came out this way. That's the way that Airtex wanted it done, I guess. We turn it around and we run it. This little ridge that's right here fits into that, helps it seal. Your sealing surface is on the bottom of here and around the inside, and also on this top piece here. So we want to put that down inside. Now we want to crimp. We don't want this thing to, right now this thing will lift right out. It doesn't go in very hard like the original one did. So what we're going to do is we're going to dimple the casting in these 4 spots. What I do is I take a chisel that I don't use anymore, obviously, and I just blunt the end of it. Those 4 spots, it's down, it's not coming out, just to make sure. It needed that extra little piece. We don't want that seal coming up, because then it will push oil out through the back here, and it will come out through the back. Put a little spot of oil in the center, because you don't want that pull rod to run dry just until the engine gets going. Now I wanted to show you the difference between original diaphragm. This is ours. Just about everything here is made in-house. It's assembled in-house. We make these plates. We assemble everything. We have these diaphragms die cut, and the pull rods we have made to our specs, and you can see a difference in the plates. And it's kind of hard to tell, but in fact they're exactly the same. This inner plate is different. The original plate used a spring seat to keep the spring from moving back and forth, and the plate was 2-inch. Now it's 2 1/4, and the spring sits inside of here to captivate it. That's the fuel diaphragm, and it's the vacuum diaphragm. That's how I tell it was made by Airtex. It even has their name on it. Again, the plates are bent here. Diaphragms are die cut. The pull rod is made. It's made in fact, it's made in this state. Now, here's a good reason for doing the fuel side first. Just get that stuck in the hole, flip it over, and you'll see the link that you want to get hooked on. You want the pull rod to get hooked on. The other one is for the vacuum diaphragm. Okay, time to put the fuel section on. Find your reference mark so that you know this is going to go back in the same spot. Oh, I didn't get my screws out yet. Okay, what we want to do is put one through opposite sides, one screw, get it cut through the diaphragm hole and through the other hole. Once those two are in there, get something on the arm. You want to pull this up so it brings it down, lines it up. Run these two screws halfway down. Just to hold it. Put the rest of the screws in, but don't tighten them down yet. Once all these screws are halfway down, as you'll notice, it's not tight. Your adjustable wrench, just use it on here for leverage. Pull it up till it stops. Now tighten down at least 4 of these screws opposite each other. Once you get 4 of those screws done, there's enough force around there so that the diaphragm doesn't move. Now what you've done is you've preloaded the diaphragm. And so anyway, what you've done is you've preloaded the diaphragm so that it will last longer. It won't tug at these at these holes. I don't know if the original one, yeah, the original one did. I'll show you in a second. If you don't do that, what it does is, you can see these, how the hole is oval. It's because it was tightened down while it was up. So it tightened down on the early spot, and then once this started flexing and going down, as the diaphragm goes down, it actually pulls in and it stretches it. It stretches the holes out. And what that will do is it'll stretch that. It'll also, yeah, you can't see it, but its stretch marks are in here. It distorts the diaphragm to the point where it'll end up leaking. Once these are all tight, they're all nice and snug down, you can test this again. Use the arm, lift it up, block off the outlet, and you'll feel it. Same thing with the inlet. You can hear that. What that's telling you is it's sealed around here. It's sealed around here, up the top. Your valves are in good. You shouldn't have any problem putting it back on the engine after you've finished with the vacuum. Now, in the kit, you should get a new spring. If you don't, use that again. You want the larger of the two. We want to put it on this way because once it goes in, it's going to sit that way. It's keyed. Push it down and turn it. You get a new leather seal. The way I put them together is, this leather has got 2 sides. It's a rough side and a smooth side. We want the rough side to go down against this. I don't know why. It's just something I do. Push that on. The smaller one. Push it down and turn it. And it will lock it down. Now down inside is the two links. You can see them down there. Hope I get that in the right. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to hook this onto those two down there. So we want to start it facing here. Put your wrench back on the arm, push it down, and it'll push that link up the top, and hook it on. You'll know that it's hooked if you see these two holes. You see one of these holes, it'll go halfway to it this way, and it'll go halfway that way. If it goes any more than that, you've only hooked one side. Be careful, because it doesn't take much to tip it, and if you tip it, it'll unhook it. Put the spring seat on and the spring. Find your reference mark and put one screw on either side. These ones are kind of difficult, because as soon as you start pushing that down, the diaphragm's going to want to fold up, and you're going to miss the hole. So the way I do it is, I'll get this end caught first. And go around the back. If the diaphragm has gone down inside too far and pushed, not too far, but far enough to push the hole up inside, push the arm down and it'll flatten it out. Run these two screws halfway down, and then run the rest of these halfway down. Be careful usually on this side, up around the front, the diaphragm will come up and it'll get caught underneath the casting. Sometimes it happens over on this side too. But you can tell by moving the arm up and down, and you'll see the diaphragm. The holes will line up. Once they're lined up, run the screws in halfway down. Once all those screws are halfway down, as you can see, it's still loose. The vacuum diaphragm, we want that to be flat. We don't want it to be preloaded. Either way, flat. Put your adjustable on the arm or whatever you use. Move it down and you'll see the diaphragm will flatten out. Once it gets in that position, we want to tighten down 4 screws. Once 4 of them are done, tighten down the rest. Once all the screws are tightened down, now you can test it again. This is the outlet, so air is going to come out. On the inlet side, you have to have the arm down, block off. It does its work while the arm is on the way back up. Now, I had mentioned before you'd put on the vacuum side last. when you're reassembling it. If you put this on first, you won't be able to see what you're doing going through here. You won't be able to know when you're hooked on. So it's easier to do the vacuum side last on assembly. And that's about it. Okay, this is ready to go. Put a gasket on it. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to my channel. I'll put a video up once in a while. Then no daily things. Even though I get fuel pumps in every day, 4 to 5 boxes of them. And that's about it. If you'd like to order a kit, like I said earlier, call in 781-335-8860. Give them the number that's stamped on your flange. It could be in any of these 4 spots. And there's some pumps that even have it up in here. It could be anywhere on there. If it's not, and there is a number on the arm, give them that number. Give them the application. A lot of times you send a picture. That helps too. It just about brings it to an end. Like this video. Have a comment. Have a suggestion. You have a pump that you want to see done. Let me know down in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Be safe, everybody.